So as you probably heard, Z Recapture is actually going to happen after almost 3 years since its initial announcement. Alongside Geass Z Code, the sequel to Lelouch of the Resurrection is finally poised to make its debut. Despite initial doubts, including my own, recent developments on Twitter have confirmed the impending update on the series to be revealed on December 18th. In anticipation, I've compiled a wish list of 10 things I hope to see in Z Recapture. Starting with number 10, which is getting more time with the side characters. Lelouch of the Resurrection was an enjoyable experience despite its many flaws, one of which is that the story mostly focused on Lelouch, C2, and Suzaku. Not to say that none of the other side characters didn't have a large role, rather I just wasn't satisfied with what they did, and it could have been much better. So it would be great if we could spend more time with those characters. Although the introduction of a brand new cast poses a challenge to this request, the precedent set by Lost Stories and Oz of the Reflection demonstrates that it's certainly doable. Those interactions are arguably the best part of Lost Stories and Oz of the Reflection, and integrating such elements into the upcoming series would undoubtedly elevate the overall experience. Since this is a TV show, not a film, they have the time to grant the side characters the attention and development they deserve. Moving on to number 9, let's talk about Geas. Ironically, despite having the word in its name, we don't learn much about Geas aside from the basics, such as how one acquires a Geas, how it evolves, examples of different abilities, the existence of immortals, and the mysterious Seas world. Here are things we still don't know. Where did Geas originally come from? Who are these children? And what are the implications of the new lore introduced by Reign of Darkness and Akito the Exiled? I would also like further explanation of failed ones to help better understand what happened to Shamna and Lelouch, and technically also Dash. I would also like a definitive explanation of what a post-Ragnarok connection world would look like, so it would be great if they could explore these and other concepts further. It would help reduce possible contradictions or inconsistencies within the past canon. Maybe the main character's story might intertwine with some of these concepts. You don't have to rush any part of the story right now, so please take advantage of that to provide more clarity, not more confusion. We'll have to see when the series comes out. Let's turn our attention to the setting of the anime at number 8. No offense, but I don't want another story set in Japan. Lost Stories can get away with this, since it's basically a reboot of Code Geass that combines the extended universe into one cohesive narrative. But that situation doesn't apply to this, so I would prefer the story to unfold in a different location, or even several, which would be fantastic. Akito the Exiled was particularly interesting because the setting was the EU, which offered a fresh perspective rarely explored in the original anime. Oz of the Reflection also excelled at this by having the story take place in Britannia and other areas like Spain. The prequel film Lelouch of the Resurrection took place mostly in Zilkstan, and even Geass Z Code, for all its many flaws, and there were many, told its narrative in multiple locations, with the main setting being Seas World itself. In each of these stories, we got to meet brand new characters and learn more about what was going on during the events of the original series from different perspectives. In following tradition, Z Recapture setting should be in an unexplored area within the Code Geass universe. Maybe Australia, a liberated number that was formerly part of Britannia, or maybe another Geass cult. Steering clear of Japan opens up avenues for fresh storytelling and exploration, allowing the writers to expand the rich universe of Code Geass. Speaking of lore, at number 7, I hope this new anime clarifies what happened after the Zero Requiem. Lelouch of the Resurrection only scratched the surface here. We've received subtle glimpses into the evolving political landscape, like the emergence of the new governments, such as the Principality of Britannia, and the revelation that none only lacks significant authority. There are even scenes like this, but I wasn't satisfied and would like the writers to answer many of my questions. What is the current state of Britannia? What happened to all the former numbers? How many nations are part of the UFN? Lloyd mentioned war-torn countries, so are there still major conflicts happening around the world? How is Delusion's vision in creating the UFN handling these conflicts? Is Margaret or Tianzi actually leading their nations, or are they just figureheads? While we're on that topic, what is the state of the EU or the Chinese Federation, since both countries went through a revolution during the events of the original anime? What is Schnizel's current position? How much power does he hold, and how did he get it? The same applies to Cornelia. I assume it was through an election. Are tensions still high between the Britannians and the Japanese? Colin mentioned that everyone is working towards ending poverty and hunger. How's that progressing? There are other things as well, which I'll probably come up after making this video, but the point is, I want to know exactly how the Zero Requiem changed the world. If this is a Code Geass anime, there will be narration before each episode, and this will be the perfect time to answer these questions. At number 6, it wouldn't be Code Geass without the Nightmare Frames and Nightmare Frame combat, unless of course we are talking about the manga. Anyways, I'm excited about seeing more of these awesome Nightmare Frames. Maybe we'll get more variants on the classic Gurren or Lancelot, or even brand new designs like the Alexander or the Vercingetorix. Or maybe incorporate this concept from Oz of the Reflection, where the Nightmare Frames act like Zords and combine into a new weapon. We've also seen some awesome Nightmare Frames from various video games, so my expectations here are quite high. I also hope that they stick to the animation style from Resurrection and never go back to what they did in Akito the Exile. Not saying it was awful, but I wasn't the biggest fan of it, and I wasn't alone either. Oh, and maybe not go too hard on the CGI. I know we'll get it, but subtlety is the key. A lot of modern mechas mess this up, but not all of them. Hopefully they'll take cues from the good examples out there. If we hopefully get more time with the side characters, it would be great to see them in Nightmare Frame combat once again. We saw upgraded versions of the Gloucester and the Sarlin, so I can only imagine what the new Zangetsu or the Tristan Divider is going to look like. With new Nightmare Frames will also come the advancement of technology, and I'm curious to see where it goes. We got Apollo's Chariot in Akito the Exiled and the Damocles in the original series. I wouldn't be surprised in the future if Code Geass starts doing space exploration and eventually starts emulating Gundam 00. Anyways, looking forward to seeing Nightmare Frames back in action again, new designs, and the brand new Nightmare Frame engineers. Moving on to number 5, I'm really hopeful for some fresh new Geas abilities. I already spoke about explaining the current lore, now let's talk about expanding it. When it comes to new Geas abilities, I'm not just looking for another version of a red Geas, rather something entirely new, like what we saw with Shamna or Layla, as long as it makes sense in the story. I think it would be cool to see new colors for Geas, maybe green or purple, and more instances of people with blue or yellow Geas. I get that this could get out of hand, but with the right writer, it could work. One of the ways this could work is to have people gain a Geas power from the shards like this character did in the picture drama. Maybe we'll get more failed ones as well. If we're introducing new Geas abilities, we also need new immortals or other entities that can grant the power of Geas. Janissary Code explored these ideas, but not always perfectly, but still it opened the door to them. One concept I found intriguing was the introduction of beings like the caretaker of time and space that work together to keep the world turning, so to speak. This new series presents an excellent opportunity to expand the Geas lore further, so let's hope it comes to fruition. And let me know in the comment section below what new Geas ability or color would you add if you were working on Z Recapture. And number 4, I want to go back to the side characters. So not only do I want them to have a bigger role in the story, but also learn what they've been up to since the Zero Requiem and the events of Lelouch of the Resurrection. Here are some examples. How are Colin and her mother? What was the resolution of the Stockfeld family? Maybe we could meet Colin's father, someone who definitely should have appeared in the original anime. What's going on with Millie's family, and what's Shirley been up to now since Lelouch's resurrection, or the other members of the Black Knights, and we can't forget about the ships. Are Nagisa and Toto married? Do they actually have a child now? What about Colin and Gino? Is that a thing or not? Because the film did make it clear how Colin felt about Lelouch. I wish they better handled that plot point from the original anime. But back to my relationship status questions. Did Rivals get the guts to ask out Millie? And if so, how was the rejection? Have Schneizel and Cannon made their relationship public? Are Guilford and Cornelia officially dating? And did Lloyd and Rashada ever reconnect? Oh, and off topic, who is this character? She appeared several times in the film. If anyone knows, let me know in the comment section below. I also hope the child prodigies from Resurrection return. The series will obviously focus on a new cast of characters, but finger crossed that some of these plot threads get resolved. Next, let's talk about Z Other Capture's story at number 3. Besides some specifics that I mentioned and will mention in this video, my main concern is the overall quality and the direction of the story. Lelouch of the Resurrection, as enjoyable as it was, had its fair share of plot issues reminiscent of the original series. Opinions on the story vary widely, with some deem it as perfection, while others dismiss it as complete trash. I find myself somewhere in the middle, acknowledging the writing's strength more than its weaknesses. There were instances where certain parts felt rushed or not well written, so given the extensive development time, I hope this won't happen in Z of the Recapture. If Z of the Recapture leans more towards the storytelling style of Lost Stories and steers clear of the approach taken in Geas Code, then I'm gonna be a happy guy. Unless we are talking about Karma Suzaku's story, because in that case that would be awesome. I hope that the writers only incorporate the good aspects of R1 and R2 into the story. Maybe not double down on the fan service and other wonderful stuff, but based on recent events, let's be honest, that's not gonna happen. Let's just hope it's not too pervasive. I know that Code Geass isn't always the best at explaining things, so all I ask is you give us a puzzle with enough pieces to solve it. Let's hope for a narrative that strikes a balance between complexity and clarity. Let's talk about L2 and C2 at number 2. So this story is going to feature brand new characters in what I assume will be a different setting. This implies that Lelouch isn't going to be the main character, which is perfectly fine. One of the best aspects of Oz of the Reflection was the absence of Lelouch as the main character, allowing us to explore and appreciate other characters, including the new ones. I'd argue that forcing Lelouch into Akito the Exiled was one of its major drawbacks, a misstep that did incur in Oz of the Reflection, where his role made more sense. That being said, after watching Lelouch of the Resurrection in theaters, my initial expectation was a sequel involving L2 and C2 on a quest for the Geas shards, and while we did get a glimpse of this in a picture drama set 10 years later, but it didn't quite align with what I had in mind, and I didn't like that time skip either. For this new series, I'm hoping for a cameo from L2 and C2. Perhaps the new main character could cross paths with them while they're on the hunt for a Geas shard, and they might even collaborate for an episode. Oh, and if they do have a cameo, please have them act in a way that makes it obvious what their relationship status is. This is a purely selfish request, but if it's canon anyway, let's give the shippers what they want. L2 and C2's quest to gather the Geas shards was something that Resurrection hinted towards, so not including it in this new series would be a mistake. However, if L2 and C2 do make an appearance in Z of the Recapture, it's crucial to not force them into the narrative. Instead, let their involvement feel organic to the unfolding story. And at number 1, and this is admittedly Cope, but characters from Oz of the Reflection and Akito the Exiled need to be in the story. Just like with L2 and C2, I imagine these characters making brief appearances, perhaps in a single episode as a cameo. We know that these characters exist in this universe because of several scenes from the films. Heck, it's even hinted from this image that the Wyvern Squad already went to Japan, notably with Eliza, Layla's cat, seen alongside Zaku and Arthur. So naturally, it only makes sense that these characters should appear in Z of the Recapture. Just like the side characters from the original series, I also want some updates on Akito's characters, specifically with Akito and Layla. And given Layla's special Geas, there's no way we can't include her in a story like this. Since we already have the Akito OVAs, this request is more for the Oz of the Reflection characters. Lost Story made a commendable effort to introduce the extended universe to new fans, but adapting these characters to the anime would make them even more accessible. Building upon the animation style of Resurrection with established voice actors from Lost Stories, the groundwork is already set. If this new series and the Oz of Reflection characters are well received, it could pave the way for a future adaptation of the manga Oz of the Reflection and other Code Geass manga like Renya of Darkness. My biggest fear of Z of the Recapture is it will be the only new piece of Code Geass anime that we're going to get, which seemed to be hinted in this article that I covered many months ago. By crafting Z of the Recapture into an exceptional series and including characters from the extended universe, we can ensure that this isn't the culmination of Code Geass anime, but rather just the beginning. And sure, Lost Stories isn't the worst thing ever, but in reality, the fans wanted more anime, and let's hope that Z of the Recapture doesn't disappoint. Let me know your thoughts on the upcoming anime Z of the Recapture in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe if you want more updates and eventually coverage of the new anime Z of the Recapture. If this new anime has rekindled your interest in Code Geass and thus you're getting back into it, then check out my playlist right here that has many videos that'll help you out.